metal cuffs bit into Zara Kenyatta's wrists as the transport van jolted over uneven asphalt. The words, "Riverside Maximum Security Penitentiary," flashing past the window like a warning shot. Something was terribly wrong. This wasn't just any prison. It was the most dangerous all-male facility in the country, and she wasn't supposed to be anywhere near it. In fact, Zara wasn't supposed to be in any prison at all. She'd been set up, that much was clear. And whoever pulled the strings wasn't just trying to bury her name. They wanted her silenced, permanently. But what they didn't realize was that behind her quiet eyes, a mind trained in military precision was already analyzing every detail, every exit, every weakness inside. Dozens of hardened inmates stared from behind bars, sizing up the newest arrival. To them, she looked like easy prey. They had no idea. Before we dive deeper, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's story connects to this one in a way you won't believe. As the van bumped along a rural highway, Zara stared through the reinforced window. Cornfields, soybeans, northbound terrain, but she was meant to be heading south, toward Millbrook, the women's facility. She knew the transport route like a mission map. This wasn't it. "Driver," she called out, voice controlled but firm. "You missed the turn 20 miles ago." The guard riding shotgun didn't bother turning his head. "You'll get where you're going. Sit back." She clenched her jaw. The instinct to take command pulsed through her, but the decorated Staff Sergeant Kenyatta had been buried deep beneath layers of civilian silence. Here, she was just another orange-clad inmate. The arrest had come out of nowhere. 1 minute, she was reaching for a carton of milk. The next, she was on the floor, face down, a voice calmly informing her she was under arrest for armed robbery and conspiracy. "There's been a mistake," she'd said, the taste of blood in her mouth. But no one cared. People just filmed her with their phones. Her lawyer, David Steinberg, had seemed like the perfect choice, a seasoned professional with a solid record. He had combed through every detail, the alibi, the timeline, the missing footage. "They've got nothing," he had told her. "No physical evidence, no credible witness. This case should have been dropped on day one." But it wasn't about the truth. "This is political," Steinberg had said. "The DA wants headlines. You're just the right story at the wrong time." Even he couldn't stop what felt more like a performance than a trial. Witnesses backtracked. Security footage vanished. Motions were denied without pause. "This wasn't justice," he muttered after the verdict. "This was theater." The sentence? 10 years, supposedly minimum security, with programs for reintegration, a place to serve time without constant danger. So why was she now staring at a fortress of concrete, barbed wire, and gun towers? "This isn't right," she said as the van neared the gates. "I'm not supposed to be here." The officer in front didn't flinch. "Computer says this is your stop." They rolled through, past towers where armed guards followed them with cold eyes. Her training took over, scanning security layers, entry points, weaknesses. This was no mistake. It was an execution plan disguised as paperwork. The van stopped in a gray courtyard surrounded by crumbling brick walls. Inmates shuffled through the yard like ghosts in orange, some curious, some already calculating. A corrections officer appeared, thick build, cold eyes. "Kenyatta, let's go." Processing waits for no one. "There's been an error," she said, as the cuffs dug into her again. "I was assigned to a women's unit." He glanced at his clipboard, shrugged. "Says here you're cleared for male housing. Take it up with the warden." "That's not even possible," he grunted. "Look, I just follow the files. And your file says this is home." As she stepped forward, dozens of eyes followed her, some intrigued, some hostile. But behind her calm steps, Zara's mind was already mapping her next move. This wasn't survival. This was war. Every pair of eyes behind those bars belonged to a man, and every one of them was locked on Zara. Their stares weren't curious, they were calculating, predatory, trained by years of survival to spot weakness and tear it apart. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have known, was that Zara had spent 15 years mastering situations just like this. Classified missions, combat zones, covert assignments where a single mistake meant death. Her instincts were screaming now. This wasn't an error. Someone had deliberately put her in the one place she was least likely to walk out of. And the worst part? She had no idea who or why. But first, she had to survive. The intake process at Riverside felt less like entering a correctional facility and more like being processed for slaughter, strip search, decontamination. A nurse who didn't even glance up until she asked in a bored tone, "Any conditions we should know about?" "No," Zara answered, flat and distant. "No meds, no history, nothing they needed to know." "Violence?" Zara hesitated, barely, before saying, "No." The real answer involved Black Ops missions and bodies that never made it into reports, but that wasn't what they were asking. At the intake desk, an officer named Rodriguez looked genuinely puzzled. "You're down for male housing," he muttered, flipping through screens. "Is this some kind of gender ID situation?" "I'm a woman," Zara said evenly. "This is a mistake." Rodriguez shrugged. "Not my call. The warden might fix it tomorrow. For now, you're going to block C. General population." Her jaw tightened. "Shouldn't I be in protective custody until this is sorted?" "Computer says Gen Pop, and here, the computer's the boss." Across town, high above the glittering city, Vincent Caruso poured himself a drink in his penthouse office. One message lit up his screen. Package delivered. Perfect. 3 years. That's how long he'd waited to orchestrate this. Zara Kenyatta had cost him $40 million in defense contracts after she blew the whistle on his company's fraud overseas. She thought she'd done the right thing. What she really did? Wrecked his empire, killed his legacy. But Caruso had learned patience from war. He waited, watched, donated to the right campaigns, called the right people. And now, the woman who'd exposed him was right where he wanted her. Inside the state's most violent prison, surrounded by men who'd been told she was a snitch. His phone rang. It was Brennan, the district attorney. "She's in," Brennan said. "Processed into Riverside." Intake officer had questions about the assignment, but followed the system. "And the lockdown?" Caruso asked. "No outside contact for the first week. No calls, no mail. Even her lawyer won't know where she is until the backlog clears." "Excellent. And our guy inside?" "Briefed. Word's already going around." Caruso raised his glass with a smile. Justice? That was just another service he'd bought and paid for. Back at Riverside, Zara was led through a labyrinth of sterile hallways and locked doors that reeked of bleach and resignation. Cell 47. Reinforced glass. Inside, a tiny space with 2 bunks, a metal sink, and a toilet with no seat. And her cellmate? A walking wall of tattoos and muscle, half of them symbols she recognized from enemy groups overseas, the other half from white supremacist gangs. Rodriguez didn't even look back. "This can't be right," Zara said. "Hope you like your new roommate," he replied, disappearing down the hall. The cell door buzzed, then slammed shut behind her. "Christmas came early," her new cellmate growled, sizing her up like prey. "Name's Briggs. Been here 8 years. Wanna guess why?" Zara stepped inside. Calm on the surface, eyes already noting the angles of the room, the weight of the air, the way out if it came to that. "Noted," she replied, claiming the bottom bunk like it was a battlefield position. Briggs chuckled darkly, circling like a shark, but Vincent Caruso had miscalculated. He thought 15 years of service had made her soft. He was about to find out just how sharp she still was. "You've got a sharp mouth," Briggs said, stepping in close. breath thick with cigarettes and something worse. "Gonna enjoy breaking you in." Zara didn't flinch. She just looked up at him with that same calm stare she used on young soldiers who thought barking made them dangerous. "I sleep light," she said, "and I wake up fast. Touch me in the night, and you'll wake up somewhere with bars on the bed." For a moment, something shifted in his eyes. Maybe it was doubt, maybe recognition that she wasn't bluffing. But then, it vanished. He smirked. "We'll see, princess." The first night passed without incident. But Zara didn't sleep. She lay still on that paper-thin mattress, eyes fixed on the ceiling, ears tracking every clang of steel, every muffled shout in the distance. This wasn't just prison noise, it was a pressure cooker, and someone had turned the heat all the way up. Morning came. She was marched to the cafeteria. The moment she stepped in, the room froze. Conversations stopped. Hundreds of eyes turned, heavy with suspicion. These weren't just men, they were years of anger and loss dressed in orange. She grabbed a tray, eggs that bounced, toast like rubber, and sat alone for about 30 seconds. Then 3 inmates sat across from her. The one in the middle was lean, covered in ink, and wore the grin of someone used to controlling the room. "You're the new fish," he said. "That's right. Word is, you're some kind of federal snitch. That true?" Zara looked him dead in the eyes. "Wrong." He leaned in, sniffed dramatically. "Snitches have a scent, you know. And you smell like cop." "I smell like someone trying to eat in peace." He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "Peaceful's over, snitch. Get used to looking behind you." Meanwhile, 300 miles away, in Washington, D.C., Colonel James Morrison was having his breakfast interrupted by a secure call. "Bulldog, we've got a problem," came the voice on the other end. "It's about Zara." Morrison stepped onto his balcony, the city behind him forgotten. "What kind of problem?" "She's gone off-grid, missed her veterans counseling appointment. Neighbor says she hasn't been home in days." Morrison's jaw tightened. "That's not like her." "That's not the worst of it," the voice continued. "She was arrested, bank robbery, convicted, supposed to go to minimum security, but something got mixed up. She's at Riverside." Morrison felt his stomach drop. Riverside, where they send the worst of the worst, where survival isn't expected. It's borrowed. 3 days, the voice said. "She's had no contact with the outside. They say she's still in intake hold." "This is a setup," Morrison growled. "Somebody wants her erased." "I'm thinking the same. So the question is, who's behind it?" "I'm pulling her full record," Morrison said. "And if someone's playing games with my soldier, they just made a fatal mistake." Back at Riverside, Zara was adapting. She watched. She listened. Learned the rules without asking questions. The yard was divided by color, by gang, by geography. Guards walked in pairs, hands close to weapons. Everyone watched her like she was already marked. While folding sheets in the laundry room, she overheard 2 guards talking. "Whole situation's weird," one said. "She's listed as male housing, but nothing. Maybe she's one of those gender ID cases. Still, you see how she walks? That's military posture, man. You don't forget that." "Doesn't matter," the other replied. "She's in Gen Pop now, and if she doesn't figure things out fast, she won't last the week." That afternoon, one of Caruso's inside men made his move. Sergeant Willis, 20 years in uniform, no trace of loyalty left, approached a man known as Dalton Viper Hayes during yard time. Hayes was a leader among the Brotherhood, a skinhead with swastikas inked across his body like armor. "Got some intel for you," Willis muttered. "That new one in Block C? She's not just a thief. She's a Fed. Helped bring down some major players." Hayes grinned, slow and dangerous. "That's so? Someone wants her gone." Quietly. Hayes nodded. Accidents happen. And just like that, a plan was in motion. But what none of them realized, not Caruso, not Hayes, not the Brotherhood, was that Zara Kenyatta had already survived missions that never made the news. Places where hesitation meant death, where she didn't just survive, she outmaneuvered trained killers. And this place, this was just another battlefield. They thought she was just another mistake to be corrected, another snitch to be handled. But they were stalking the most dangerous prey they'd ever encountered. It happened on Zara's 4th day. She was pacing the outer perimeter of the yard, mapping blind spots and guard tower gaps out of habit, when 3 Brotherhood members stepped out to block her path. The corner was perfectly chosen. No camera coverage, no eyes from the towers. Just concrete, shadows, and a target. "End of the line, snitch," sneered the first, wiry and twitching, teardrops tattooed under both eyes. His 2 friends fanned out to flank her. Zara stopped, faced them calmly, hands relaxed at her sides. "You boys lose something?" "We're just here to remind folks what happens when you help the feds," the second said, cracking his knuckles like punctuation. "Wrong woman," Zara replied, voice steady. "I'm not a snitch." The third, built like a linebacker, laughed. "That's what they all say. Thing is, we got intel says otherwise." Then they moved, fast, coordinated, practiced, a strike team meant to overwhelm. But Zara wasn't most targets. Before the first man could grab her, she sidestepped, drove an elbow into his gut, dropping him like a bag of bricks. The linebacker lunged. She pivoted, swept his legs. Concrete met his face with a crack. The last one hesitated, too slow. She snatched his wrist, twisted hard. Something popped. 10 seconds. 3 men down. Zara turned to the yard. "Anyone else want to discuss my loyalty to federal authorities?" Silence. Every head turned. Every basketball stopped bouncing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Then came the whistles. Guards stormed the yard. "Down! Everyone down!" Zara slowly raised her hands and knelt, but her eyes never left the crowd. Something had shifted. She wasn't prey anymore. She was a problem, a serious one. By dinner, word had spread through every block of Riverside. The new arrival had taken out 3 Brotherhood hitters and hadn't even broken a sweat. In the max security wing, Hayes, the Brotherhood's shot caller, heard the news from one of his lieutenants. His response? Rage. "She took down 3 of our guys," the man said. "Clean. Quick." She moved like she's done this before. "She has," Hayes snarled, slamming his fist into the wall. "Double the bounty. Next time, send 5. Meanwhile, in the administrative wing, Warden Keir rubbed his temples while reading the incident report. "This is the 3rd inquiry this week about her housing," Captain Rodriguez said. "She's clearly female, but the system lists her in male classification. Now, there's a fight in the yard. We put her in protective custody. This gets attention," Keir replied, voice tight. "And we've been told to avoid attention." "Sir, she could be in danger. She's handling herself just fine. She stays where she is." But 2 states away, Colonel James Morrison was digging, and what he found made his blood run cold. Zara wasn't just a veteran. She'd been Delta Force, one of their best, 47 confirmed kills. Top tier in hand-to-hand combat, recon, psychological ops, a soldier trained to vanish into war zones and return with the intel that changed outcomes. And her final mission? Operation Clean Sweep. She'd exposed one of the biggest contractor scandals in U.S. history, uncovered corruption that shook Washington and got multiple executives indicted. One of those names? Vincent Caruso, the man now enjoying the fruits of revenge. Morrison grabbed his encrypted phone. "Richardson," he said, "we've got a serious problem, and we need to move." Back in Riverside, Zara's days were structured like combat deployment. Up before dawn, calisthenics, mental recon. She mapped guard behavior, watched who respected her space, who didn't. The laundry detail kept her under the radar, but always alert. Those machines could be weapons, could be shields. The fight had earned her breathing room, but it came with a price. Eyes followed her now, some with fear, some with calculation. Predators studying the one inmate who refused to be prey. "You're making enemies fast," Martinez muttered, folding towels beside her in the laundry room. A lifer with decades under his belt, he had the quiet respect of someone who'd survived by never making waves. "The Brotherhood," he added, "they don't forget, and they don't forgive." "Thanks for the warning," Zara said without looking up. "Wasn't a warning," Martinez replied. "It was advice. Ask for protective custody, while you still can." Zara folded another jumpsuit with mechanical calm. "Hiding only delays the fight. I'd rather face it on my terms." Martinez sighed. "Your funeral." But the real danger wasn't out in the yard. Not yet. It was in her cell. That night, everything felt off. Briggs was quiet above her, shifting in his bunk too often, too tense. Zara lay still, her body resting but her senses alert, like every night she'd spent behind enemy lines. Then came the sound, fabric brushing the floor. Her eyes opened. Briggs stood over her bunk, shirt off, moving slow, deliberate. A predator closing in. Zara didn't hesitate. She exploded into motion, her knee slamming into his gut as she rolled out from under him. He doubled over, but not for long. Prison had taught him to take hits. He lunged again, trying to pin her to the wall in the cramped space. His hands clawed for control, arms, throat, anything he could grab. She twisted, slammed an elbow into his temple. He staggered but kept coming, desperation giving him fuel. He landed a punch that rocked her head back. Wrong move. It triggered something deeper, something older. She wasn't prey anymore. She was the weapon. Zara locked his arm, used his own weight, and drove him headfirst into the wall. The impact echoed. He dropped, bleeding, unconscious. Down the hall, Officer Thompson heard the sound. He'd worked corrections long enough to know the difference between noise and danger. This was danger. He rushed to cell 47. What he found was clear as day. Briggs, face down, shirtless, blood pooling. Zara, seated on her bunk, blanket wrapped around her like armor. "You okay?" Thompson asked, voice low. She nodded, breath still sharp from the adrenaline. "I can guess what he tried," Thompson said, already reaching for his radio. "Medical emergency in cell 47. Get me backup." As medics worked on Briggs, Thompson scribbled in his report. It wasn't his first case like this, but rarely had he seen someone handle it this cleanly. "You want to press charges?" he asked. "Against who?" she replied. "The man who attacked me, or the system that gave him the opportunity?" Thompson almost smiled. "Fair." When Briggs came to an hour later, Thompson was waiting. "You're going to solitary," he said. 60 days, attempted assault." "That's not what happened," Briggs groaned, his nose heavily bandaged. "She attacked me." "Funny," Thompson said. "You were shirtless. She was under a blanket. I know what that means." As Briggs was dragged away, Thompson turned back. "You've got the cell to yourself now," he said to Zara. "Try to rest." But rest wasn't an option. This hadn't been random. She could feel it. The tension from guards who wouldn't meet her eyes, the whispers in the halls. Someone was pulling strings, turning prisoners into weapons, and tomorrow they'd try again. Harder, smarter, meaner. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Richardson was staring at a screen full of redacted lines. "No contact yet," he told Morrison over secure video. "They say she's still in intake. No privileges, no calls." "She's not just locked down," Morrison said. "She's being buried." "But I found something," Richardson continued. "Transfer logs, Classification changes made just hours before she was moved changed her status from female minimum to male maximum. Hacked? No. Internal access. Someone at Central Corrections did it manually, not a glitch. An inside job. Morrison's face hardened. Caruso has people on the inside, everywhere. Her lawyer can't reach her, Richardson said grimly. Steinberg's been calling for days. The Department of Corrections keeps giving him the same line, in transit, but they won't say where. They're stonewalling. Morrison's face hardened. Someone wants her buried so deep, no one ever finds her. If she really is in general population at Riverside, Richardson hesitated. How long do you think she can last? Morrison didn't answer right away. He thought of the soldier he once trained, the one who never flinched, who volunteered for the hardest assignments, even when the odds were impossible. Longer than they think, he said quietly, but not forever. We need to move. Fast. Back inside Riverside, the whispers began on day 6. Zara noticed them first in the laundry. Sudden silences when she entered. Eyes that glanced and turned away. Conversations that ended too fast. Martinez, usually steady, now avoided eye contact, keeping himself busy with imaginary tasks. Something was shifting. You hear that? Officer Thompson asked that night, pausing outside her cell. Hear what? The quiet, he said. This place is never quiet. Not like this. He was right. The normal noise of prison life, shouts, clanging doors, insults bouncing off concrete, had vanished. What remained was stillness, tense, unnatural. Like the moment before a storm when the whole world holds its breath. Something's coming, Thompson muttered. Watch your back. Zara lay on her bunk after he left, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time since arriving, she felt it. Real fear. Not the sudden jolt of battle, but something deeper, heavier, the dread of knowing you're already inside the trap, and it's starting to close. She'd survived the yard ambush. She'd stopped Briggs. But this was coordinated, and it was spreading. By morning, she overheard fragments that made her blood run cold. Machine shop's missing inventory. Hayes called a meeting. Big money, real money. In the cafeteria, the patterns had shifted. Brotherhood members were no longer grouped together. They were spread out, watching exits, watching her. Rival gangs were meeting, whispering, enemies becoming allies. Martinez finally came to her during the lunch break. They're planning something, he said quietly, pretending to sort linens. Not just the Brotherhood anymore. Hayes is bringing in other groups. What kind of plan? The kind that ends with your name on a toe tag. Zara's stomach dropped. Someone put a price on your head, big enough to unite people who'd kill each other any other day. 6 figures. 6 figures. Enough to turn hardened enemies into collaborators. Enough to buy guards, silence, opportunities. That night, alone in her cell, Briggs now in solitary, the full weight of it hit her. She was going to die here, not in a blaze of glory, not for a cause, just removed for cash, a silent bounty, a quiet kill. Her body would be found in a hallway or a mop closet. Another number in a system that didn't care. And for what? Because she told the truth? Zara's breath caught in her chest. She thought about home, her tiny apartment, quiet Sundays with coffee and old records, the freedom to go for a walk, to speak, to choose, gone. And what made it worse, she didn't know how long she had. Days? Hours? Every moment of silence could be a countdown. Every sound in the hallway could be her end. Her training had taught her how to survive, but this wasn't survival. This was the long shadow of execution. The fear was trying to get inside her head, and it was close. She could feel it turning her sharpness dull, weakening her, exactly what they wanted. But underneath that fear, something else stirred. She wasn't ready to die. Not like this. If Vincent Caruso wanted her gone, he'd have to do better. She started cataloging weapons, escape points, guard patterns, every crack in the system she could exploit, every guard who looked like they hadn't fully given up. If war was coming, she was ready to make it personal. Meanwhile, 300 miles away, Morrison's office was glowing with the light of encrypted screens and classified files. The calls he was making weren't just urgent, they were desperate. The paperwork was altered from the inside, Richardson reported over encrypted video. Someone high up, assistant director level or higher, changed her classification manually, hours before transport. Morrison's blood went cold. This wasn't some clerical mistake, he said. This was a hit, disguised as bureaucracy. Exactly, Richardson replied. They're not just trying to silence her. They're setting the stage to make her vanish. If she dies in there, it'll look like prison violence. Another tragic headline, case closed, no questions asked. How long until we can bring in federal marshals? I'm trying, but the deeper I dig, the worse it looks. These people have built a firewall across multiple agencies. Any contact we make might tip them off. The call ended in grim silence. Both men knew the stakes. Bureaucracy moved slow, but death moved fast. And inside that fortress of concrete and steel, Zara was almost out of time. By day 8, her isolation reached a breaking point. She hadn't used the communal bathrooms once since arrival, relying on her cell sink, rationing water, enduring the discomfort. But her body had limits, and they'd been reached. She waited for the moment she'd calculated was safest, early morning, between shifts, when guards rotated and most inmates were still behind bars. She slipped toward the restroom in Block C. It was too quiet. Every instinct screamed. Too late to turn back. She stepped inside, and the metal door slammed behind her. 6 men emerged from the shadows, 2 from inside stalls, 2 from behind the door, 2 more from the walls. Not just brotherhood, others too. Gangs that weren't supposed to talk to each other, now united by one thing, the price on her head. There she is, said the scarred man from the yard, voice cold with anticipation. Our payday. They fanned out, cutting off escape. Their movements were practiced. Their hunger was visible. We knew you'd have to come here eventually, said one, massive with ink running up both arms. Just a matter of time. 6 ways still makes us all rich, another sneered. Easiest money we'll ever make. The leader pulled a sharpened shiv from his waistband. Just make it look like a brawl gone bad. Prison violence happens all the time. Zara backed toward the wall. I'm not who you think I am. Doesn't matter, he replied. All that matters is what you're worth. His eyes scanned her like inventory. Though it's a shame to waste a body like that before we're done. The others laughed. Cold, broken, dangerous. One of them moved his hand in a gesture that made her skin crawl. Another didn't even try to hide his intentions. Might as well enjoy it first, someone said. The air turned to poison. Zara's heart pounded. 6 men, confined space, at least 3 weapons. This was no longer a fight. This was survival. She grabbed the nearest object, a mop in the corner, and swung. The handle cracked across one man's face, blood bursting from his nose as he staggered back. Grab her, the leader shouted. But don't break her, not yet. The largest man lunged. His fist slammed into her jaw, snapping her head sideways. Dazed, she stumbled into the sink, but managed to rip the soap dispenser off the wall and slam it into his temple. He went down. That's coming out of your cut, someone roared. But 4 attackers remained, and they were done playing. 2 pinned her arms. A third drove a fist into her stomach. She doubled over, gasping. Then they slammed her into the wall. Her head hit concrete. Lights flared behind her eyes. "Hold her," the leader said, raising the blade. "Quick and clean, then we collect." "Why rush?" another growled. "Guards won't check for 20 minutes. "Yeah," said a third, voice turning dark. "No one's stopping us." His hands moved toward her. Zara reacted on instinct. Her knee shot upward with all the force she had left, right into his groin. He screamed and crumpled, but the others tightened their grip. "Time's money," the leader hissed. "We're not here to play." "We're here for business," the leader snapped. "Speak for yourself," muttered one of the others, swinging a weighted sock in his hand. "I say we enjoy the bonus round." A fist smashed into Zara's cheek, snapping her head sideways. Blood filled her mouth. Another blow slammed into her ribs, forcing a cry of pain from her lungs. They weren't just hunting her. They were trading her life like currency. "End it," the leader ordered. "In a minute," someone else sneered, reaching for her again. Zara twisted violently, breaking free from one attacker's grip. Her hand closed around a shard of ceramic on the floor, and she slashed. A scream followed as the jagged edge tore across a face, opening a deep, bleeding gash. But the others piled on her instantly, slamming her to the tile floor. Her skull cracked against the ground, dazing her. Rough hands pinned her. "No more games," the leader growled, raising his improvised blade. "This is business." A massive arm wrapped around her throat from behind. "Make it look like choking," he whispered. "No stab wounds." Zara's vision blurred. Her lungs screamed for air. Her nails dug into his skin, but his grip didn't break. "Almost there," someone said, watching her struggle. "Couple more seconds." The bathroom door exploded. "Everybody down! Don't move!" Officer Thompson stormed in with 3 guards at his back, weapons drawn, orders booming. The chokehold released just enough for her to gasp. Air, sharp and precious, filled her lungs. Her attackers backed away, hands raised, feigning innocence. "She attacked us," the leader shouted. "We were just defending," but one look told Thompson everything. Zara collapsed on the floor, bruised and gasping, surrounded by 6 men, weapons still visible. "Medical emergency," he radioed. "East bathroom. Get paramedics and full backup." As the other guards moved in, Thompson knelt beside her. "You're safe now," he said quietly. But Zara didn't feel safe. 6 men had tried to end her, for money, and they'd almost succeeded. "How close?" she whispered. Thompson looked at the bruises on her throat, the blood, the weapons. "Too close." Paramedics arrived. She lay still while they checked her breathing, examined her cuts. But her mind kept replaying the moment the air left her body, the black edges closing in, the certainty of death pressing in like concrete. The line between life and death in Riverside. It was razor thin, and she was walking it every day. The infirmary smelled like bleach and false safety. Nurse Patterson cleaned her wounds, snapping pictures for the file. "You're lucky," she murmured. "They didn't crush your windpipe." Zara almost laughed. Lucky, she was on borrowed time, and it was running out. Thompson stood in the doorway, jaw tight, eyes scanning the report. 6 attackers, weapons, coordinated. This wasn't random. "No," Zara replied. Her voice was a rasp. "It was business. The bounty." She nodded. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm recommending you for protective custody. Solitary. It's not comfortable, but it's alive. Will the warden approve it?" Thompson hesitated. "I'll make the case." But he already knew how that conversation would go. An hour later, he stood in Warden Keir's office, report in hand. "We need to talk about inmate Kenyatta." "What about her?" 6 men tried to kill her this morning." "She survived, didn't she?" "Barely. She can handle herself. She won't next time." Keir finally looked up, expression cold. "Are you questioning my judgment, officer?" I'm questioning why we're keeping a woman in general population when it's clearly a death sentence. The system assigned her there, and we both know that's a lie. Someone changed those records. Keir stood slowly, voice low and sharp. You're one sentence away from suspension. Kenyatta stays where she is. End of discussion. Thompson walked out knowing exactly what that meant. He just made himself a target. By refusing to back down, Officer Thompson had likely signed the end of his own career. But he'd done what he could. And behind the walls of Riverside, the story of what happened in the bathroom was spreading fast. Faster than the people behind the attack had expected. Only it wasn't sending the message they wanted. 6 guys, Martinez said during chow, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, to take down one woman, and she still put 2 of them in the infirmary? A lifer at the next table scoffed. Brotherhood used to be feared. Now they need a whole squad just to corner one inmate. In the Max wing, the fallout was already hitting. Hayes, still recovering from the embarrassment, slammed his fist on the table as his lieutenant delivered the news. Word spreading, the man said. Other crews are asking questions. Brotherhood's reputation's taking a hit. Then we double the pressure, Hayes growled. Send 10 next time. Problem is, half our guys are still in medical. The rest, starting to whisper that this bounty's cursed. Cursed? Hayes's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. It's just one woman with some training. But if too many bodies pile up, the lieutenant added, we'll draw outside heat. Feds, investigators, maybe worse. Hayes hadn't thought of that. Casual violence was expected. A massacre? That was attention nobody wanted. Fine, he said after a pause. We get creative. Make it look like an accident. 3 states away, Colonel Morrison's encrypted line buzzed. I've got good news and bad, Richardson reported. Good news. I found the Pentagon contact who helped set Zara up, Martin Webb, Deputy Assistant Secretary, currently consulting for Caruso. And the bad? He's cleaning house. Files are vanishing. Witnesses reassigned to overseas posts. The evidence trail's going cold. Morrison stared out the window, fists clenched. Time was bleeding out. How soon can we get marshals to pull her out? We're trying, but there are moles everywhere. Every agency we reach out to might be compromised. Then we bypass them, Morrison said. We go through special operations, military channels. It'll take time, approvals, paperwork. Time she doesn't have. Back in Riverside, Zara was feeling the full weight of that truth. The infirmary had cleared her for return to general population, despite Thompson's protest. Now she sat alone in her cell, the bruises on her neck turning black and purple. Each one a countdown, a reminder she'd come seconds from death, and it would happen again. Not maybe, definitely. This time had been practice. The next would be the final act. She thought about writing to her sister, a last letter, something to explain what was happening. But what could she say? That the country she served had thrown her away? That her death was for sale, priced, purchased, and planned? She couldn't find the words. Footsteps echoed outside her cell. She tensed, but it was only Thompson. His face said it before he spoke. I'm sorry. They denied it. I know you tried. This isn't over. I'll keep pushing. Maybe someone outside. Zara gave him a tired smile, but inside, she already knew. The clock was ticking. The system was rigged, and she was running out of time. But surrender? That word wasn't in her vocabulary. If they wanted to finish her, they'd have to earn it. At 2:47 a.m., Morrison's secure line rang. He sat up, adrenaline already kicking in. Bulldog, we got him! Richardson's voice crackled through the encrypted signal. Webb just made a critical mistake. Morrison was already reaching for his boots the moment Richardson said the words. What kind of mistake? He demanded. Webb tried to delete the Pentagon investigation files, Richardson said, used his own clearance codes, left a digital fingerprint tying him directly to the evidence tampering. Morrison's voice dropped. We've got him cold. Federal marshals can be mobilized in 6 hours, Richardson confirmed. But there's a complication. Caruso just accelerated the timeline. Morrison froze. How bad? Mass casualty, disguised as a riot. She disappears in the chaos. No body, no investigation. Silence. Can we warn her? Still no communication, no phones, no mail. She has no idea help is coming. Morrison's jaw clenched as he threw on his jacket. Then we better move. Fast! At Riverside, the air was heavy with unspoken tension. Something was coming. Everyone could feel it. The guards had stopped asking questions. Inmates were shifting territories. Conversations had gone underground. Word was spreading. A major operation was set for tomorrow. Hayes had pulled together a meeting. Every faction, every race, every gang. A summit of violence. The bounty on Zara's head had united men who normally would have stabbed each other over a seat in the mess hall. Tomorrow, Martinez whispered during their laundry shift. Yard time. That's the hit window. Details? Just that it's big. Brotherhood. Aryan nation. Even independence. They're all in. Zara nodded, the walls closing in. This wasn't a hit. This was an execution disguised as chaos. Martinez, she said, her voice low, if something happens to me, nothing will. You're too tough. But they both knew the lie in his words. Meanwhile, Vincent Caruso was facing his own reckoning in a high-rise office lined with secrets. We have a problem, Deputy Secretary Webb said on the encrypted line. Clean sweeps on radar. Serious people are asking questions. How serious? Marshall serious. They're connecting dots we buried years ago. Caruso felt sweat break through his collar. How long? Hours, maybe less. Then accelerate. He ended the call with trembling fingers and poured himself a drink. His hands didn't stop shaking. Zara had ruined him once. He couldn't let her do it again. At Riverside, Warden Keir received Caruso's final directive. This operation will destroy us if it leaks, he said into the phone. The liabilities contained, Caruso snapped. Proceed. Keir hung up and stared at his reflection. 30 years in corrections, and this was how it ended. Not with retirement, with a cover-up. He authorized a training exercise that would shift key guards away from the yard during tomorrow's critical hour. A quiet sabotage. That evening, Zara lay on her bunk, replaying every sound, every warning. The bruises on her neck had faded, but she could still feel them. Phantom pressure, phantom fear. Tomorrow, they were coming for her. Not 6 men, dozens. No one would stop it. No one would intervene, and she would die in a concrete yard for doing the right thing. She thought of her nephew. His birthday was next week. Of her sister, Maya, still unaware she was even behind bars. Of the life stolen from her in the span of a single setup. Officer Thompson arrived with a haunted look. Tomorrow during yard duty, he said, they're pulling guards from key posts, skeleton crew. It's happening. Any word on protective custody? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. She already knew. Thompson, she said, if I don't make it, make sure they don't bury the truth with me. You're not dying tomorrow. We both know that's a lie. He hesitated, then slipped something through the bars. A small, black device. Emergency beacon, he said. Press it if things go bad. Might not save you, but it'll leave a record. She took it, held it like a lifeline. Tomorrow, she would face an army, alone, but not without resolve. The night stretched long and silent, possibly her last. And Zara Kenyatta prepared for war. Dawn broke over Riverside in a cold, steel-colored sky. The kind of morning that didn't just predict trouble, it promised it. Zara was fully awake, fully present, every muscle, every nerve alert for threats. The emergency beacon Thompson had slipped her lay buried in the mattress, her last card, one she prayed she wouldn't have to play. The morning felt wrong, too quiet. Guards moved like they were trying to look normal, but they were tense, on edge. Conversations halted the moment she entered a room. The entire prison was holding its breath. "It's happening today," Martinez whispered as they folded laundry side by side, his voice calm, his hands shaking. "They're calling it Operation Cleanup." "Subtle," Zara muttered, glancing at the clock. Yard time was in 2 hours. 2 hours until a coordinated execution attempt. "Talked to a couple of the old lifers," Martinez continued. "They say even when the Brotherhood first took over, it never looked like this. Hayes pulled in the best from every crew." "How many?" 15, maybe 20, all armed, all trained, all after you." Zara felt the weight of it in her chest. A solo fight was one thing. A coordinated assault by 20 killers? That was a sentence, not a challenge. "You need to stay away from the yard today," she said quietly. "Don't get involved." I thought about it, but if I'm going to see someone die for doing the right thing, the least I can do is remember her name. The words hit her harder than any punch. For 10 days, she'd fought like a ghost, alone, forgotten, but now someone would carry her story. "Thank you," she said. That was all she could manage. 300 miles away, Colonel Morrison sat in the back of a speeding SUV, coordinating the most important rescue of his life. "ETA to Riverside?" he asked the driver. 90 minutes, sir." "Yard time?" 2 hours. Morrison's gut twisted. That gave them 30 minutes. 30, if the roads held, if nothing delayed them. "Richardson," he said over comms, "what's our legal clearance?" "Federal warrant signed 20 minutes ago," came the response. "We have full authority to extract her pending investigation. And if the warden resists, then we arrest the warden too." Finally, Morrison allowed himself one breath of relief. After 10 days of watching one of their own be hunted like prey, justice was moving. The only question now was, would they get there in time? At Riverside, Warden Keir stared at his security monitors, and the realization hit him hard. He wasn't in control. He'd sold that a long time ago. On screen, select inmates were shifting, moving, predators closing in, a knock at his door, his secretary. "Sir, federal marshals just arrived at the main gate. They're demanding access." Keir's blood froze. When? Now. Zara would be in the yard in 30 minutes, surrounded. If the marshals reached her first, "Stall them," he ordered. "Lost paperwork, clearance delays, anything." "Sir, they have a federal warrant." "I don't care if they have presidential orders. Buy me 30 minutes. As his secretary rushed to intercept the marshals, Keir reached for the phone. He needed to speak to Caruso. Immediately. In the Max Wing, Hayes addressed his strike team. 20 killers from every gang in the yard, all handpicked. "Yard times in 1 hour," he said. "Target gets walked in, gates close. Guards stay out of it." "What about the feds?" asked Marcus Blade Williams. Hayes smiled. "If they show up, we call it a prison fight. Happens every day." The men nodded. They weren't worried, but none of them knew who they were walking into, because Zara Kenyatta wasn't just a former soldier. She was Delta, and she'd spent 15 years walking into death traps and coming back out alive. Back in her cell, she was preparing for war. Her weapons were scraps, a sharpened toothbrush, a strip of metal, cleaning chemicals turned into improvised defense, pathetic against numbers like these, but she wasn't expecting to win. She was planning to make them pay. The emergency beacon waited beneath her mattress, a silent signal. If she didn't survive, at least the world would know what happened. Footsteps echoed outside her cell. She looked up. It was Thompson. His face was tight. "Yard detail," he said quietly. Zara stood. This is it. Zara Kenyatta knew the moment had come. Thompson's eyes told her everything. There were no more changes, no more delays. Yard time would proceed as scheduled, and with it, the final attempt on her life. As they walked, she thanked him quietly. "Whatever happens, you tried to do the right thing. Don't forget that." Out in the yard, it looked casual, inmates scattered under gray skies. But Zara saw the trap, 20 armed men, placed with precision, all waiting for her. The first attack came fast. 2 rushed from opposite sides. Zara dropped one with an elbow to the head and disarmed the second with a wrist lock. But the others didn't charge. They encircled her slowly, playing a psychological game, taunting, testing, tightening the trap. Hayes, their leader, laughed. "All that training, and you'll still die for a bounty." Zara held her ground, conserving energy, tracking movement. Then she saw it. One man wasn't carrying a makeshift weapon. He had a real knife. "Where'd you get that?" she asked. "Friends in high places." This wasn't just a hit. It was execution by conspiracy. Meanwhile, Colonel Morrison was at the prison gates, but red tape delayed entry. When the guard resisted, Morrison showed his ID. "That woman is a U.S. soldier under threat. Open this gate or face federal obstruction charges." Inside the yard, the circle closed. Hayes gave Zara a choice: kneel and die quickly, or resist and be torn apart. She raised her voice. "Option 3, you all go to hell." Just as the attackers closed in, gunshots cracked the sky. Federal marshals had breached the gate. Hayes ordered his men to finish her, but the shots broke their nerve. One by one, they backed off. Only 8 stayed. Zara fought with everything she had, using their panic against them. She disarmed, dodged, struck, holding out until federal agents reached the yard. Hayes, furious, charged with his knife. He nearly drove it into her heart before agents aimed rifles at his head. Zara twisted his wrist, dropped him with an elbow, and watched as he was cuffed. Morrison appeared beside her. "Let's get you out of here." Zara was rushed to safety, her body bruised, her mind exhausted, but she had survived, and justice was catching up. Caruso was arrested, Webb turned witness, Warden Keir suspended, the prison placed under federal control. Hayes and his men were charged. Weeks later, Zara testified before Congress, exposing a system where revenge and corruption nearly killed her. She launched the Kenyatta Institute to train survivors like herself and offer legal support for those failed by the system. In her sister's backyard, watching kids laugh and play, Zara finally felt peace. Not the peace of silence, but the peace of purpose. Caruso tried to bury her. Instead, he helped forge something stronger. A fighter, a witness, a leader. Zara Kenyatta.